What is up, Holy Babes? Welcome back to another episode of Call Her Holy. I'm Laura Eldridge.
And I'm Nicoletta Bradley. And y'all, I don't think I've ever been so excited than this episode today. When I say that this episode is aligned by the Lord, it is aligned by the Lord. Joshua, welcome to Call Her Holy.
I'm just absolutely honored to be here. And I can't wait. I think this is going to be great.
How do you feel about that intro?
I mean, I'm pretty hype. I mean, I'm feeling pretty good.
so.
There's a lot of expectation.
I feel like we need to tell the people the story of why I'm so excited. And so a little backstory is I was in Charleston on a run. And it was hot. And I was like, I need a podcast that's going to keep me going. And so a little bit of background of kind of where I have been in the last few months is I have been doing a lot of research on pornography. And this has come from a place of, you know my story. This has come from a place of dating relationships in my past have failed due to guys confessing I have had a struggle with pornography. And I always say that body image is to women as porn is to men. And so I've done this deep dive of going, okay, why is it that 90% of women struggle with body image, but now statistics are showing that 90% of men also struggle? I think it's even higher now. And I feel like they're so related is that the more we see the porn industry go up, the more we're going to see body image go up and vice versa. Yeah. And so I was doing a deep dive in this area of listening to every podcast I could find on pornography. And wow, okay, we're just going to go there. Within the last few months, I was dating someone and he looked at me and said, I don't think I'm attracted to you. And with the struggle of my background, Josh, to let you in, is a 20-year battle of an eating disorder. I've started a ministry pushing back darkness for women around that topic, and my goal is to do Noble for Men one day. And it just started asking this question of going, man, is my body the problem, or is the fact that pornography is infiltrating every single young man, not even young man, old man, men in the church and out of the church alike, is that the thing that is affecting men to view me as undesirable, or is my body actually the problem? And so in that was in Charleston listening, and I just typed in pornography, Christian, Jesus, and JP's podcast popped up. And I have never ran so fast listening to a podcast in my entire life. And so I want to affirm you. I don't know you well, except outside of that podcast and the time we've spent in the beginning of this podcast, but I am extremely encouraged by you. And I am I'm going to get emotional, but I'm lucky that a man in this area is saying there's freedom, but also you offered me a lot of hope of knowing that what if it's not my body that's the problem? What if the enemy's actually just winning? Yeah. And it's not my fault that men that are God-fearing men are not going to be attracted to me because of 15, 20 plus years of a pornography addiction. Yeah. I'm getting emotional because it is just once again, y'all know my story. I'm 32, single, and have had so many men make comments about me physically. And it's so painful. And diving more into the effects of pornography has shown me, wow, what if it's not always me? That's the problem. And so would love to just have you tell some of your story. Yeah. I bet that for some women, they have no idea your story, and your story encouraged me. So I'd love just to open up the floor and have you.
Can I do something really quick?
Yeah, please.
Because you're a dad.
Yeah.
You have 4 boys.
Yeah.
And just recently lost a baby.
Yeah.
This week.
Yeah.
And that's really heavy. And I've sat in this seat and been processing a miscarriage at the same time. Yeah. And that was really vulnerable and broken. And you're a girl who God loves. And you're sitting with somebody who's dedicated his entire life to God's calling to help people redeem and restore something that the world is terrorizing.
Yeah.
Hearing her say that.
Yeah.
If she was your daughter, what would you say to her in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say it before he even said that, but I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Thanks. And when God sees you, he says, hey, this is my daughter. And you're perfect in every way, that he numbered the hairs on your head, that he knitted you together perfectly in your mother's womb. And there's nothing that's not perfect about you in his eyes. And you're absolutely right. So pornography, it doesn't just corrupt someone's ability to appreciate beauty. It corrupts their ability to connect to another person. because it's fragmented reality to the extent where they've formed a relationship with an augmented reality, with a screen, and everything that goes with that. So I think they're even more so disconnected from intimacy, and they don't understand what that is. And when I experience either brokenness or hate that's directed towards me, I always understand it has nothing to do with me, and it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. And I'm so sorry that happened.
It's okay. It's happened for a lot of my life.
But it's not okay. But I mean,
you're right. You're right. It's not okay. You're right.
That's where
It's not okay.
that's where I think that I'll say this and
do it.
No,
let's keep this going.
But I think that's where we went through this this period in church culture where it wasn't talked about at all, and then we went through this period where it's just boys being boys. And there's so many churches that I go in. There's so many people who identify as Christians that say, "Well, this is just part of my story. This is just part of my struggle. This is just the reality that we live in." Well, not if you're going to call yourself a follower of Jesus. So if you're calling yourself a follower of Jesus, yes, Romans 8:1 says there's no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. So shame should not be part of your identity, but you're called to die to yourself, and that's not what following Jesus looks like. And it's not okay. And it's not just part of who you are. So again, I'm so sorry that brokenness that I'm dedicating to eradicating on a big level has impacted your life in that way.
It's okay. And I mean, full transparency, I've received so many DMs from other women that have said the same thing. Like, they've heard my story, that a guy said that to me in high school. I've heard that multiple times from different men. And it's like, man, a girl truly yesterday just said, like, man, I just got dumped yesterday because he said he wasn't attracted to me.
Yeah.
And I looked at her Instagram profile. I'm like, you are stunning. Like, you are beautiful, but it's everywhere. Doesn't matter.
But I would say, because they've developed an appetite for something that is fictitious. So they'll be insatiable for what they can't obtain, because what they're after they'll never have.
Yeah.
Because pornography, it's real people, but in the same way, it's like you would see a crazy fight scene. There's two people that don't really want to be there, and there's a deep aspect of brokenness in their lives individually, and now they're trying to recreate an act it's divinely created to be sacred, but it's augmented by a director telling them what to do, them having presuppositions about how they are to do it, and it's not for each other, because that's the craziest thing, because sex is created by God for procreation and connection, and reflection of who He is, but like pornography, it's a director telling someone how to have sex, but how to have sex in a way that is not for them, it's for the viewer. Because it's not about pleasure even, it's about performance. So it's like what you're seeing isn't even pleasurable to an extent, because you're performing for an audience. And every time a girl is looking deeply into what you think is the eyes of a man, it's actually a camera that's over the shoulder of a person that has their head out of the way, that's taking erectile dysfunction medication so that they can continue going, and the girl's using numbing cream so she's not in pain. That's the reality. So you're craving something that is incredibly broken and so disconnected. And when you develop an appetite for that, it looks like something it's not. So what you're after isn't even real. Dang.
Can you tell the audience how you know that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So they're like, who is this guy? How does he know there's a camera over the shoulder of a girl?
So I think a big part of my story, and I connected with something you both said so much. So I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, and my mom got pregnant at 15, had me at 16. And the thing about growing up in a small town is it only takes one person to know one thing about your life for everyone to know everything about your life.
What small town were you?
Pageland, South Carolina. So you got Charlotte, and then Matthews, Monroe, and then you cross the state line.
We were literally
South Carolina's
neighbors.
right there. Oh, really?
I'm from on the South Carolina line.
Oh, wow.
Do you know where Bowling Springs is?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm from Mooresboro.
Oh, wow.
Right there.
That's so crazy.
That's fun.
That's
Keep going.
funny.
I didn't hear your story, so.
Yeah, but so I was, that's where I grew up. And in that town, so I knew who my dad was. And he actually, so his dad, him and his dad had the same name. And my mom was working at this restaurant like my whole life. And I would sit at this table and look out this window. And through the window, I would see the convenience store called Rogers. And Rogers was my grandpa's name. And the store was his. And I would see a green Z71 pull into the store. And it would be my dad. And he would get out. And I would see this scenario play out over and over again. And eventually, you know, he had a little boy with him. And then he had a little girl with him. And they grew up. And I watched this. And I saw a reality where my dad was across the street, but he was never in my life. And just the way that attachment theory works, the development of us understanding our emotions is that when I'm a child, if I experience something that I don't understand, if it's not explained to me, the way that I have to keep my sanity is I have to create a narrative to make what doesn't make sense make sense. And what made sense to me is maybe he doesn't want me because there's something wrong with me.
I feel that so deeply.
So I believe that, well, if I became enough and earned enough, maybe then and only then I would feel as if I was enough. And I lived through that brokenness my whole life. And I was a great student, great athlete, did all the stuff, but it was really trying to earn what it would feel like hearing my dad say, "Son, I'm proud of you." And because I never heard that, I thought, man, maybe if I get enough counterfeits, you know, pats on the backs and trophies and game-winning shots and accolades and awards or whatever, maybe I thought that would mitigate that deficit I had. So that was kind of the thing in which, you know, the broken lens in which I saw my entire life. And I had, like, my mom's amazing, so I had a good childhood. You know, I had my mom there, but I never had a man in my home telling me what it meant to be a man. I never saw a visual example of a healthy relationship. And then I saw pornography at 13. And when I saw pornography, Romans 12:2 talks about how we're either being conformed by the world or being transformed by the renewal of our mind. And it goes on, so that I can discern what is God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. And either the word is going to educate us and transform us, or the world is going to educate us and inform us. And for me, because of conversations I didn't have, knowledge I didn't know, when I saw porn, I thought, man, maybe this is love I'm missing out on. Or maybe this is like connection that if I had, and I really thought if I do that, I will feel what I don't. And I, you know, early on, sexually active, pursuing women in that way. And that kind of, you know, that was at 13. Fast forward 9 years, go to college, I'm in a fraternity, playing college basketball, doing all this stuff, modeling and acting, go to school for theater, moved to Hollywood. And I thought, okay, if I'm in Hollywood, that'll be, you know, advantageous for my career if I'm closer proximity to the industry I want to be in. Had an agent. Things were going okay. Like, I had a decent reel. I was getting auditions. I was having more success modeling than acting, but life was good. And I was in a bar when I was 22, and 3 girls came up to me and said, "Hey, would you ever consider doing porn?" And I was like, what a weird question. And I think I really thought, like, is this real? Like, what do you mean? Like, do I want to do porn? And what I meant by that was that the very reason that I said everything I said earlier is that when you watch porn, naturally, like, God wired on our heart to love people and to use things. Porn teaches us to love things and use people. And the objectification of that was to the extent, after watching porn for 9 years, and, you know, living a very promiscuous lifestyle, I'd gotten to a point where someone said, "Do you want to do porn?" And honestly, I thought porn was this, like, different reality. I was like, what do you mean do porn? Like, those are real people? That's a real thing? That's a job? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like pretty curious about it. I'm like, well, what I got to do, you know? And they said, well, I'll introduce you to our agent. And essentially they were headhunters. They were girls that, you know, Friday night in Hollywood looking for good-looking guys, good-looking girls. Hey, if I introduce you to my agent and you sign a contract, I get paid for every person. And I said, I'll meet with the guy. How bad could it be? And then I meet with the agent, and very naive, he asked me, how did you grow up? What are you doing in LA? What do you hope to accomplish? And, in essentially a job proposition, like someone asking you how you grew up is, somewhat strange. And really what he was doing was, hey, is there any aspect of, your family dynamic that is broken? How, like, it was a value proposition. Is there something, you can tell me so that I can have ammunition to manipulate you? Yeah, to manipulate you. Because like some people say, hey, a lot of people talk about sex trafficking, and obviously there's force, fraud, coercion. And I get asked, is that part of the porn industry? It's not part of it. It's dependent on it. It's built upon the foundation of force, fraud, and coercion. So I'm asked, how did you grow up? I grew up in a, just me and my mom. Perfect. You've got a daddy wound. I'm going to lean into that. And, and you want affirmation. You're a good looking guy. You told me about your acting. I mean, I can tell, like, you're sharp. You're this, and, like, you can be the guy. You can make money. You can be a star. You can do all this stuff. And I knew it was like a very, counterfeit version of what I wanted to do. I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I want to, act in movies, and I want to like model, and I want to be part of this like beautiful industry where I'm using this creativity that I love and care about to contribute and inspire people. Like, that's what I want to do. I know that's not that, but the enemy is very crafty in the way he's like, hey, do you want this? It kind of looks close to, similar to, might make you feel like. So I said yes, and I thought, how big of a deal could it be if I did one film? And I did one, and it blew up my life. So I didn't understand that the film that I did, it was for a really popular website. A lot of my fraternity brothers saw it, started getting phone calls. And then again, being from a small town, it only takes one person to know one thing, for everyone to know everything. And then, so like to that point in my life, I would have said, I'm not sure about me, but if there's something that's true about me, like I'm my mother's son, like my mom, like, in spite of us growing up like really tough, I always had everything I needed. I would always somehow was like always in like the best basketball camps. I always had basketball shoes. I always had stuff that like, how did you do it? And she protected me at all cost. And then she asked me, because being from the South, it's like how much of your name gets used and how much trouble you're in. So when I heard Joshua Broome, I knew like, yeah. And she's like, did you do one of those porno movies? She said. I said, yes, Mom, I did. And it's like she just broke. And the lie that Satan whispered in my ear when I was 6, when I was looking through the window and I saw my dad, and I felt like he could see me, but he chose not to see me. And that feeling of inadequacy, when I hurt the only person that had never hurt me, Satan said to me, see, you're exactly who you thought you were. And then at that moment, what made sense to me was just to double down. Because I thought, well, I blew up my life. And then obviously, this is 2006, so a very different world. My management is like, we can't represent you, when your name's attached to this. So I thought, well, okay, well, I understand networking. I understand all this stuff. And it's like, I had a lot of success in a very strange industry because I was somewhat of a normal person where I remembered people's names. I showed up on time. Like there was a lot of opportunities to do like parodies of movies and stuff. So acting was something that was advantageous for me. But I spent almost 7 years in that industry, and I did over 1,000 movies and won a bunch of awards and made millions of dollars and did all this stuff. But all the while really believing, well, if I make enough money, it'll make me feel different, right?
Yeah.
Or if enough people know who I am, it'll make me feel different, right? And then lastly, there was an award, specific award that I got nominated for 3 years in a row. It was Performer of the Year, which is like, the biggest award you could win as a guy in the industry. And I didn't win 3 years in a row, but I got nominated. And then the fourth year I got nominated and I won. And I thought something about, me being chosen was going to solidify the feeling of worthlessness. And when it didn't make me feel like I thought it would, it amplified the anxiety. It deepened the depression. And very quickly, I spent 6 months, multiple times, trying to take my life. Because I thought, if none of this is going to work, and I was so sure that it would, maybe I'm just broken beyond repair. And not only that, now I've hurt everyone that means the most to me, and I pushed them all away. Because how can I be a son? How can I be a friend? There is no light at the end of the tunnel. And, through a crazy array of events, I met this bank teller, and I'm depositing a check, and I wanted her to say, look at the check, see the memo on the check, see it was clearly for pornography. And I just wanted like a look of disdain, like some kind of permission to say, you're exactly who you think you are. You're as dirty as you think you are. You're gross, whatever. And that was going to be what kind of gave me the courage or the fuel to take my life. And instead, she didn't respond at all. And when I was broken because she didn't respond the way that I wanted her to, she actually came around the counter and put her hand on my shoulder and said, Joshua, how can I help you? Joshua, how can, how can I make this right? And what she didn't know is that was the first time I heard my name in 18 months. Because in that industry, that agent said, okay, I can make you famous. I can make sure you make a lot of money. You'll be so important. What name do you want to go by? Because the first thing you do is you go by a pseudonym. Because if you detach yourself from your humanity, you'll be willing to do things that you would never do. It's the same like a very antagonistic person on the internet, on social media. More often than not, there's a meme for a photo and then an obscure username, because they believe if I do that, then I can operate or live in a way that is detached from accountability or reality, because it's not me doing it.
Yeah.
And so I heard my name, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I need to call my mom. And I called my mom, and she chewed me out. And then she's like, hey, I'll always love you. You'll always be my son. Please come home. And I did, but what I brought home with me was all the brokenness. And then I lived for 2 years, like kind of in the mess of, well, I'll just build, I'll leave that industry and I'll just build another kingdom for myself. Yeah. And it was in the health and fitness industry. So I, got the right credentials. I got met the right person that would mentor me and be, help me network. And then all of a sudden I found myself very successful in the health and fitness industry 2 years later. And I found out that, well, even though I'm not doing that anymore, I'm still under the weight of the brokenness of what I experienced. And now, my pain and all this stuff is amplified. Even if I'm not doing what I used to do, I still feel the same way. And then after 2 years of that, I meet this girl, and I'm like, man, she's a bad.
And you're not a believer this whole
not
time,
a believer.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. I meet this girl, and I ask her on a date, and she shoots me down. I ask for dinner, coffee, anything I could think of. No. And with each rejection, I fell deeper in love. And then I asked again. She was like, look, I go for this like really long run before church on Sundays. You can meet me and go for a run. I was like, whatever, I'll take whatever I can get. And I show up. And then as I'm waiting for her to get there, I start to realize, I'm like, man, like the culture of the gym that I worked at, like everyone hung out, partied together, stuff like that. But like, she was never there. Yeah. And I was like, man, I bet she doesn't know my story. And then I start thinking, like, gosh, if she knew my story, she would have never agreed to this. And I'm like, gosh, before like I get, my face like rubbed in the dirt, I'm gonna pull the Band-Aid off. So I'm just gonna tell her. And I'm just like, as soon as she gets there, I'm like, hey, something I want to tell you. And I feel like I just like blacked out in like 5-minute monologue of like, this is how much I suck. Like, this is how bad I am. You know, I'm this kid that his daddy didn't want. I've done all this porn. It's on the internet for the world to see. And all the stuff that creates the most shame in my life will probably always be one click of a button away. And she was like, rightly taken back by this. And then we walked for a little bit, and then she looked at me and said, are you still doing that stuff? I'm like, no, it's been 2 years. And then she stops again. She's like, I don't want to say that your trauma is not real. I don't want to negate the reality that your decisions had consequences. But I do want to say that you are not defined by the worst thing you've ever done. And you won't be defined by the greatest thing you ever do. Because you are not the author of you. God is. Do you know him? I mean, and I wanted to say, sure, you know, I just wanted to say whatever, you know, because I live my life like, I call it the first date mask. You know, it's like, I don't know who I am. I'm just going to be whoever I think you want me to be, because I don't really think I have anything to offer. Yeah. So if I try to be whoever I think you want me to be, maybe then you'll like me.
As a word for some people listening.
Yeah. And I was just like, I just felt so vulnerable. I was just like, I didn't have the capacity to be dishonest in that moment. So I was just like, no. And she shared with me that she'd been following Jesus since she was in 7th grade. And she wasn't perfect, but he was the foundation from which she lived her life. And she's like, well, what kind of food do you like? You know, what's your family like? I'm like, what? Like, you don't want me to leave? Like, this is crazy. We just like walked and talked for hours. And then, you know, we text like maniacs for that week. And then the next Sunday she invited me to church, and I showed up not knowing if I should be at church, but what I did have was this unwavering curiosity that was catalytic by her giving me, you know, a freight train of both grace and truth. Because what she said to me was exactly the opposite of what I believed. Because I believed I was absolutely defined by my dad not wanting me and me not having a relationship with him, and all the decisions that I made that were bad. I thought I was a bad person that was inadequate in every way. And she challenged that. I'm like, man, could she be right? And we go to church. I hear the gospel, and there's this moment in 2 Samuel chapter 9 where Mephibosheth is receiving this grace from David, and it's so uncomprehendable to him is that he refers to himself as a dead dog. He's essentially saying, you know, don't you remember who my grandfather is? Like, don't you know the lineage that I come from? Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I've done? And I think we do that. We try so hard to disqualify ourselves from grace. Like, God's sitting there offering it to all of us. And we're saying, well, don't you know what I did? I'm this bad. And we try so hard to, like, outweigh what Jesus did on the cross. And that's what I was doing in my mind. And then I heard Hebrews 12:2 talking about the joy that was set before Jesus as he endured the cross. And there was something about that joy that was connected to the reality that I had a Father in heaven that loved me, that stood in front of so much. And I gave my life to Christ. And that was almost 11 years ago. Wow. And that girl's name is Hope. And we've been married for 9 years.
Come on.
And we've got 4 kids. And God has taken every aspect of my story, every broken part of my life, and not only he redeemed it, he's used it for his glory. And you know, it's, you know, from the fact that, you know, we're married with 4 kids, but I get discipled by this guy Andrew that our friend JP discipled, and he just pours his life into mine, and I fall in love with the Bible, and in the same way that Moses was used by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, God used his law to get Egypt out of them. In the same way, Jesus saved my life. And as I begin to read the Bible and I begin to take the Bible seriously, the Bible started to get Egypt out of me.
So good. Egypt being a reference to
all
the like sin and chaos and just Just lay that out plainly so people know. Like,
because at the end of the day, so the reason that the law was implemented, not so that they would be perfect, it's that they were accustomed to pagan worship. Yeah. So the reason the law was given, not because you're not supposed to get tattoos, you're not supposed to get, wear garments that have multiple colors, or not practice certain things. All those things were saying, hey, you are now my chosen people, and I want you to be set apart and holy, in that there's to be no idols in your life, and I want you to focus on worshiping me.
And so you're going to look different than all the other nations. Like Egypt was this powerhouse with all these people, and this looked like sexy, if you will.
Yeah.
And then he's literally saying, like, be set apart from those people.
Yeah,
different.
And the beauty of consecration, or the beauty of removing things from your life where you were worshiping gods that won't save you, and gods that don't love you, and gods that don't speak to you. When you worship the one and true God, there's a relationship that you have with him, and there's love and joy and peace and purpose that's attached to that. And so it's not be good so that you can, receive good. It's that believe that Jesus is who he claimed to be. He did live a perfect life. He did die on the cross. He did rise again. He is seated at the right hand of God. And because of that, we can be forgiven. We can be set free, and we can live with a hopeful understanding of, like you shared earlier, even though that we lost a child, my hope is in heaven. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I didn't hurt. But it does mean that I have a hope that's attached to something that is just as real as that we can't hug or hold our child today. I believe just as much that that child is in heaven. Yeah. So that all happens, and then I just fall in love with the Bible, and then so it's so funny that I walk into a room, and I think like we were talking about pornography, and I think the thing that pornography is like, what's the solution to it? Well, Jay Stringer has this book called Unwanted, and he talks about how a person that is a follower of Jesus, if you can clearly articulate like your individual, like Ephesians 2:10, like your individual God-given purpose, you're 84% less unlikely to fall into habitual sin. And the reality is when you're doing things for God and you're living in the purpose that God created you for, everything that doesn't lead you toward that purpose or contribute towards that purpose, you can see it for what it is, a distraction, a deterrent, and it's just hurtful to you and everything that you're committed to. But as I begin to understand these things, I go to Liberty, get a theological education, do all the stuff, serve on staff at a few churches, and it's been a wild ride. But part of that is like, I've got this radical story that, I've been on Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Sean Ryan, and all these stuff, and they all ask me the same question. How'd you go from like being the top porn star in the United States in 2012 to teaching the Bible? Like, how does that make sense? Yeah. I was like, well, number one, it doesn't. Yeah. But how it happens is that Jesus lived a perfect life. He died on the cross and he rose again. And because of that, the person that used to be dead is now fully alive. And I've got a new plan and a new purpose for my life.
And here's what's crazy is like, yes, it doesn't make sense, but in some ways it's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you look at the story of scripture and you're like, dude, those were some busted dudes.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
and girls that God was like, you're the one that I want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always say so playfully, because I mean, I think we live in a day and time where it's like, man, do we want this guy that was like a prominent porn star, like teaching the Bible in our church? And it's like, there's probably 100 podcasts that I've done, and the title is like Porn Star to Pastor or whatever. And it's like, do we want that? Like, do we want this in our church? And I always say in truth, but like in good humor, I'm like, Moses, he killed a guy. David killed a guy. Peter lied right to Jesus' face. Paul, contributed to the killing of many Christians. I've never killed one person, not one, not one. And yet we see all this in the Bible. Like, why? Because God is a mastermind, and he's committed to using broken people, restoring them, and not leaving the broken parts of their story out. Because why? Because he gets the glory.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think part of that is it's one thing to have an incredible story. Like we all like when you come, when you give your life to Christ, like you get baptized, you're like, okay, this is the starting line. And I think there's another aspect too in what I'm really committed to. So I serve as the executive director for a ministry called Walk Worthy that's attached to the biggest biggest Christian mental health organization in the world, the American Association of Christian Counselors. And we're committed to just helping the church define, what does the Bible say about sexual ethic? What does the Bible say about intimacy, relationships, and then sex? Because intimacy can exist without sex, and sex can exist without intimacy.
Yeah.
So like helping give language to the church, because I think, where we are competent, we can be confident, and then we can have conversations about things that we feel uncomfortable about, because the Bible or God is not uncomfortable when it comes to sex. He designed it. He loved it. He's for it. And it was never supposed to be something that we're like, iffy to talk about. But I just love that God gave me the story, but then I'm like, man, if I want to help the most people possible, I need to lean into this holistic healing, in that mental health has a seat at the table. Like what, how can I educate myself, and not only the reality of the story that I can tell about pornography, I can pull back the veil and tell about, the depravity and the deepness of it. But how does it impact the end user, like from a neurological standpoint, from a practical standpoint? And that's what I've dedicated the last 10 years of my life to. So
can we talk about that for a second, though? Because that's what I really want to hear about, is talk to our listeners. Like it's probably 18-35. That's the range. And what we're known for.
Ironically, that's the largest demographic of consumers of pornography. Yeah.
And what we're seeing right now is just, I don't know, JP always terms it as FOBO, fear of a better option. We're seeing marriage rates go up. People aren't getting married till way later.
Are you saying marriage, the age of marriage?
It goes up. Like eating disorders are on the rage. And it was interesting, after just kind of doing this deep dive on pornography last week, I feel like I kind of got this image of seeing the demonic in a way I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Because I just realized, like, man, a woman's body was the pinnacle of like women was like the pinnacle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this body that we see Songs of Solomon write about, like I am in awe.
Yeah.
But then after I've done all this research on the effects of pornography, we're seeing that men enter into the wedding night and they're like, oh, like gross. Like that's not what I've seen on the screen.
Yeah.
And I can't even, I'm just going to be vulgar, but like I can't even get stimulated or get it up based on a naked woman, a normal naked woman in front of me.
Yeah.
And last week I just felt like, I literally was on a prayer walk one time and I started crying.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, with my background with body image, of going, man, like, is there ever going to be somebody who sees a normal body and is attracted to it in our day and age? And so would love for you to talk about, even hearing your story, like, you don't have to go into detail every wedding night, but how did you go from that to then seeing a normal woman and being just in awe? And I know that obviously, yes, Romans 12 too, but speak to everything that I just said, because I think I don't think that women are aware of how like demonic pornography is.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're aware that it might not be their fault.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I did it. I had no idea until I did all this research. And so, speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, we're talking about an industry that makes more money than the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball all combined.
Yeah.
So around 33 to 35% of all the data transferred on the internet on a daily basis is pornography. You're talking about a third of the traffic on the internet. So like in the world, I won't name them, but the top 4 biggest porn sites, the top 4, all in the top 20 visited sites in the world. Gosh. The top site visited on average 26 billion times. And like that. So I share those numbers like that's hard to get your head around. You wrap your head around, but like it's that prevalent that in the world, 4 of the sites are in the top 20. So I want to just spend maybe not. This is not the direction that maybe I wanted to go or necessarily meant to go, but I can't not like give all the props to my boo, but because the reality was like for Hope, like purity wasn't something that I was pursuing, and we did not have premarital sex, not because of me. I was very much in hot pursuit of her, but it wasn't an option. So when it wasn't an option, I had a choice. I'm like, am I willing to pursue her and to pursue God in the way that the Bible is telling me, and she is saying, hey, this is not like an option. So I think there was part of the beauty of being in a desert, because like until you're in a desert, you can't appreciate an oasis.
Yeah.
And that's God's heart for sex. Like God never intended on any of us having any expectations. It's supposed to be, this beautiful, uncomfortable learning, discovery, just like, even like the first time you have a conversation with someone, like as you're following love, it's like, it's messy and confusing and awkward kind of, until it doesn't matter that it's awkward and confusing, because you're so connected and familiar with one another that,
you're having fun. You're enjoying each other.
And it's actually okay to be goofy. It's okay to be yourself in a way that you would only be in front of no one but yourself. And like that's God's intent. And then with her, there's just been times in our life where she allowed me to heal from those things, in that, we were in a small group, and a girl asked her, just in good faith, but pretty bold. She was like, how do you not have animosity towards him? And how do you not find yourself judging yourself based upon the people he's been with? Like, how do you not wrestle with that? And it's like, well, I don't have animosity towards him because the person that did those things was a dead man. I believe 2 Corinthians 5:17 is real. So that person was dead, and I knew him for 3 or 4 days before he gave his life to Christ.
Yeah. She's incredible.
She is. And like, she's like, like, why do I not like find myself like wrestling with comparison? Because why would I speak to myself, and why would I project upon him nothing that God says and everything that Satan says? And it was her certainty in God and his word that allowed me to heal, because I was insecure. Like, I was worried often, like, man, like, I experienced so many bad relationships where, there were aspects of that where, it's just like, if I do if I do the wrong thing, or if I, push enough, or you get mad enough, that's just ammunition you got in your back pocket. You're going to say it, or you're going to use it. It's just a matter of time. For her, it was like, I just refuse to speak to you the way that Satan would speak to you. I'm going to choose to speak to you the way that God sees you. And it's like, you're his son. You're holy, set apart. You're clean. You're pure. Not because of you, because of the blood of Christ.
Okay. Oh, can I?
Yeah.
There are wives listening to this right now.
Yeah.
Who are actively working through porn confessions from their husbands.
Yeah.
And, like, the emotional, like, talk about the emotion, because in theory, I think they'd be like, I would love to be like that. And I feel shame for not being like that, because I know he knows Jesus, and I know, but like, I'm hurting. Yeah.
But I would say, like, when it comes to betrayal, it's like, man, everyone is called to forgive, but no one is called to forget. And I think what comes with that is the dichotomy of, if I just let you off the hook, then I'm actually enabling you.
Yeah.
So what has to happen is, like, I mean, every situation is different. So I'm not going to say, this is prescriptive to, this is what everyone needs to do.
But a general starting point.
Yeah, a general starting point is to, in the same way where, from posting on social media or responding to something that, as a dad, so I pray, I pause, pray, ponder. Pause, pray, ponder. In that, if I don't know if we were to get to this, but like, what would you do if your kid came to you and someone had showed them porn? your instinct would be probably to freak out, to get angry. But when your kid brings you information, like in vulnerability and trust, the way that you react is either going to amplify the shame that they feel, or they're going to feel safe, and they're actually going to give you more information. It's actually going to breed a place where they can be the most honest. So pause, pray, ponder. And then when you receive that news, like, I would say every situation is different. Like if they were caught and then now it's a conversation, in contrast to they went to an event, they spoke to a mentor, and they've confessed to a mentor, and a good mentor is going to say, not the version you told me, but the truth. Because I don't think that, I think wanting to know all the details in some instances is not healthy, but you need to know the truth. And so I will always tell someone comes to me, like, if you're going to ask me, should I tell my wife or my girlfriend or whatever the situation might be, the answer is always going to be yes.
And honestly, even if they don't ask you that, go tell your wife.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would say seek out a different mentor if they don't tell you to tell. But at the end of the day, when they give you that information, if they are coming to you, as a spouse or as a girlfriend, if they're coming to you with this information, it's gonna feel bruising, it's gonna hurt. But if they are being forthcoming with this information, they do care for you.
That's good.
They do care for you, and I think the way that you respond to that is going to be indicative of what they do next. But again, how they do it matters. Like their commitment to integrity matters. And if they're saying, "Hey, this has been something that's been going on in my life. I want you to know about it because I care deeply about you. I've confessed to a friend or a mentor or a brother about this, and I want to actively seek help. I don't want this to be part of my story, and I'm so sorry that I hurt you." Like, that's ideal situation.
And willing to accept and let you grieve.
Yeah, let you grieve.
Yeah.
Give you your space. Like, allow you to set the boundaries. Like, you tell me the boundaries, and I hit the mark. And then also it's like I don't think that you should ever guard anything. It's like there's probably 10 people. I don't even know if I know the passwords to my social media. Well, actually, I know that I don't, because sometimes I need them and I'm like, I don't know that.
Texting people, what's my password?
But it's like, like being in a relationship, specifically a marriage, you should live with no secret. So someone should have access to all of your social media, your phone. Like, the only reason I have locks on my phone is because who knows what my kids would do. They would probably, Amazon boxes would be at the door.
No, for sure.
But I would just say, like, you like, to live a life with no secrets, is so important. But I would say to that person, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But how you respond to that is individual to your situation and how it happened. But there is a calling from God for us to forgive, not because of an outcome, not because of a situation, but because we have been forgiven. But forgiveness doesn't mean we forget. Yeah. And those boundaries, or what that relationship looks like. And reconciliation is not always a promise. Forgiveness is required, but not always reconciliation.
Forgiving someone also doesn't mean that you trust it again.
Right.
And then trust can be earned.
Back. Yeah.
That's, if trust is a jar and you're constantly either kind of putting in tokens or taking them out, something like that's disrupting can take the jar and dump it completely. Yeah,
I mean, I the way I explain it is similar to that, like equity. It's like you have so much equity. Well, you lost all your equity, and that equity, sure, it can be gained back, but not instantly.
Yeah.
So I think in the same way, it's unhealthy for you not to grieve and for you not to talk with someone else, and you just stay bitter And if they're really trying, if they're really showing up, if they're really being honest, if they're really being open, like, here's all my devices, here's my life, put a tracking device on my forehead, like whatever I need to do to make you feel like safe, and whatever you need from me, I will do. If they're doing that and you're just so bitter that you will not let them like live in that, like, I think that's also unhealthy.
It's also sin.
Yeah, but I would say I would say, like, that's true, but in my experience, that's not often what happens. It's easy. It's the other way around, if I'm to be honest.
Yeah, where people want to shove it, or like it's almost sometimes, I think, harder for the wife to like accept it, because I've seen that happen too, where the guy confesses to like consistent porn use, and then the wife's like, "We're okay," and I think it really is. Sometimes she's like, if I go there, I'll crumble, and I have to stay strong for my kids or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think, and it's like, I mean, that's why at the end of the day, like, that is why Satan is using pornography to destroy men, to destroy marriage, to destroy culture.
Yeah.
Like that's why pornography. Like we're talking about, like, this is not a secular problem. So I did a year-long research project with Barna, and we polled 3,500 churches, and they said around 65% of men and 44% of women were on a monthly basis watching pornography in the age demographic that you guys were talking about, the 18 to 35 demographic.
In the church.
Yeah. People who regularly go to church. And then interestingly, I think, like, the church really needs to step up in this regard, and this is really what I'm committed to. Like equipping the church and calling the church out and up. And when I say church, I mean followers of Jesus, into holiness. And it's like that. This is what we're called to. Yeah. Like this is not something that I ought to do. No, this is the call. If you're going to accept that Jesus died for you, you're called to lay down your life. And we have to drag all the stuff, whether it's porn or anger or pride, whatever it is, you have to drag it to the cross. Crucify our flesh over and over and over again. Meaning that if there's an aspect of my life that doesn't line up with Scripture, I can't just say, well, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
Jesus loves us enough to meet us in that, but not leave us that way.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, because I mean, she's married, I'm single. So I want to make sure you answer this for all our single girlies.
Yeah.
What would you say to the girl who is terrified of getting married one day, and because of the effects of pornography on men? And so whether that be they've had 10 years of healing, but they had 15 years of looking at pornography, and now I'm expected to be naked in front of them, or fear of, like, I've dated a guy right now and he's still struggling with this. And I also want to say this first before you into that, is I never want to demonize men. And I know godly men that are still fighting the fight of pornography. Like, I was even dating a guy that was one of the godliest dudes I've ever met, but he's still, in a way, like, fighting to his core. And that doesn't mean that he's bad or wrong. And so for the girl that's in here, well, every guy's bad because pornography's everywhere. That's not true. Yeah. But what about for the single girl that's like, how am I ever going to be comfortable in me when pornography is infiltrating probably the man that I will marry one day? Yeah, I mean,
JP talks about this a lot, in that dating is only 120 years old, meaning that no one in the history of time ever has went on a date before 120 years ago. Like, that is a real stat. That's a real thing. So dating is only 120 years old to the world, and a lot of it had to do with the invention of the automobile. Because before then, it's like, our families knew each other. Someone got introduced to this person, or arranged marriage, because that's the only thing that happened. So now you've got all these opportunities, online and all this stuff. And just the reality is, you shouldn't settle, like, because you're worth more than settling. So what do we look like? I mean, what do we look for in someone? If I'm pursuing dating, as a follower of Jesus, what I'm saying is, who am I pursuing to potentially be my spouse? Because that's very different than, like, because dating sometimes can be, well, I think this person's cute, or I have this, like, connection with this person because we have this commonality and this interest. If that starts with, first and foremost, do they love Jesus? Are they a follower of Jesus? If that's my standard, then some of the stuff is going to be different. So if that's my standard, that's what I'm looking for. And if I'm going to look for that person, well, that's got to be my standard for myself as well. And I think that even in marriages, we get there's this struggle in men and women like abusing verses of the Bible or misinterpreting verses of the Bible, like talking about, like in Ephesians, this wives are called to submit to their husbands, and it's like, well, you like a guy could take his brokenness and say, well, this is a preference that I have, and you're not submitting to me and providing me with this preference that I have, a fetish that I have.
A lot of times, though, I think the guys don't even realize that they're doing that.
Yeah.
And I think they don't even realize that it's porn that's infiltrated their thinking and their desire. So they're in this relationship, and they're like, wait, her boobs aren't bigger.
Right.
And I'm upset about that. You know what I mean? And now I'm in this wrestle, and I'm talking to my guys of like, is this porn or is this not? Or is this like, should I wait? Am I settling? You know what I mean? And there's this like...
Yeah, because I mean, when I speak at colleges, I'm like, who has watched porn in the last 6 months? And I'll look for what hands go up, and what hands go up. I was like, just to be clear, porn comes from the Greek word porneia, and it's talking about sexual imagery. And sexual imagery is something that you can find both on Bridgerton and both on Games of Thrones.
Yeah.
Who's watched porn?
Yeah.
Everyone's hand should go up. Yeah. Because if you live in this culture, if you have social media, you've seen porn, right? And all of that, it corrupts our thinking. And so to my point is that to the person saying, hey, you're not going to submit to me, like you need to submit to me because I have this preference, but it's not a preference because sexually, I shouldn't have a preference. That's called a perversion. Mm. So there's a demonic stronghold in my mind, and I'm misappropriating scripture saying that you need to submit to me so that you can please me. But the thing that I want to please me has nothing to do with love and everything to do with lust. And that is sin. So in the same way where like men, well, they're not called to just submit. They're called to die. Mm. I'm called to love my wife as Jesus loved the church. What did Jesus do? He died. So I'm called to die to myself. Yeah. But to your point regarding like singles out there, it's like, man, know my standard and say, hey, I don't have to settle for anything less than what I deserve. Yeah. And if I'm living my life as a follower of Jesus, what I deserve is someone who loves Jesus. And that doesn't mean they're perfect. And also it's like, if I love Jesus, could that person could porn be part of their story? Yes. And I think that's why communication is so important because like, these are questions that today in these times, it's like, that should be a very early conversation. Like, is there anything that's part of your past that you might struggle with that could impact our relationship? And if that person has a history of watching that, what a gift. Because I would say like that's a person walking in integrity. Yeah. Like Psalm 84 talks about like God will withhold no good thing from those who walk in integrity. And it's like, man, I'm looking for someone that really has integrity and God's not going to withhold any good thing from this person in that if they're willing to say, this might have been 10 years ago, but I care about you enough to say that this is part of my story. And I've worked so hard on renewing my mind and my heart. And I don't want that to impact my relationship with you. Yeah. Like that sounds like a healed person. That doesn't sound like a hurt person, but hurt people hurt people. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like, if I'm watching porn, I'm hurting my mind. Like you can look on a CT scan and see the tracks of dopamine going to your synapse in the same way that you would see someone who's been using heroin for 10 years. If I've been watching porn for 10 years on a regular basis and I've been using heroin for 10 years, you can see visibly on a CT scan the tracks on that brain. So I say that to say, like, the person really wrestling hard to get rid of it, you can't like try really hard to get rid of a real addiction. Mm-hmm. Like from a neuroscience standpoint, like this is an addiction that has corrupted your brain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think trying really hard to stop doing it isn't helpful. Mm-hmm. What's helpful is realizing why I do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I would say, like, to your point, though, like, to the singles out there, don't settle.
Yeah.
And but live in the reality of, man, I want a man that's committed to integrity. So is this part of your story? If it is, like, do you have accountability? Is this something like, do you have accountability software on your phone? Like, what steps are you taking to walk in integrity?
Godly sorrow leads to repentance is what kept coming to my mind
Yeah.
over and over and over. And something I think somebody needs to hear that godly sorrow leads to repentance, because it can feel like this, like, what's this line? And we have an episode on this with Rachel and Joel Warnicking that we'll link in the show notes.
Yeah.
And that's also going to give you handholds if you're like, hey, I'm actively struggling with a sexual addiction, or I am somebody who's been betrayed by somebody with a sexual addiction. Go through that ministry. Go through that ministry. We'll link them in the show notes as well. A lot of times the question can be for people of, like, what's the line of, like, he looked at it once or he looked at it 4 times, like, should we still get married? Godly sorrow leads to repentance.
Yeah.
And so if there's an addiction and he's trying to repent, like, he needs to go get help for that addiction. That is not on you to, like, take that on. But if you're wondering, like, hey, what's the line of, like, moving forward in a relationship or not, like, repentance means you stop doing it, you turn.
Yeah, I would say to that, like, repentance in that, it's a logistical terminology where you are making a 180-degree turn away from where you are and you're turning towards God, and that's not passive, it's active. So now whatever I'm pursuing, I'm going to now turn away from that, and I'm going to pursue God with the same effort. And I would say to the person that's wrestling with it, I would say number one, you got to tell someone. And also you got to tell all of it, because the depth of your confession is going to equate to your level of healing.
Yeah, it's good.
So don't say 99% of it. Like, the 1%, the thing that you don't want to say, the thing that you believe to be unmentionable, that's the thing actually Satan is using to hold you captive. So you can only be as free as you're willing to be honest.
Come on.
So if you're willing to be honest, like, okay, start there. Say all the things. And then, okay, I need to take inventory of my life. What am I allowing into my mind, my ears, my eyes? What am I allowing into my life? Who is speaking into my life? Take inventory. Everything that I'm consuming, because what I consume is going to overflow from me. So what am I consuming? Take inventory of that. And then I need to set boundaries. If I'm going to say, hey, this is not a direction that I want to go, this is not something I want to do, I need to set boundaries. And the way that I do that, I have to develop this self-awareness, because if I don't have self-awareness, I can't be obedient. So what's tripping me up? Is it social media? Is it the gym that I'm at? Is it a friend that I shouldn't have in my life? Because John 15 talks about, this cutting and pruning. It's really obvious the dead branches I need to cut off my life. Pruning, on the other hand, sometimes that's uncomfortable, but sometimes comfort is actually compromise. I need someone that loves me enough to tell me, I need a Proverbs 27:6 friend, the wounds of a friend. I need someone in my life that knows me well enough, that's close enough to me, and that has enough equity in my life where you can say stuff that stings a little bit, but it actually makes me a better follower of Jesus.
So good. I can tell you have so much to share, and I wish we could just, like, capture it all and keep this podcast going for, like, 5 hours. We are going to wrap it up, and just want to say thank you so much. I know there's so many more depths to your story, and Nicoletta, I know there's so much in what God is teaching you right now, and, like, in the process of healing and towards being told, like, just to anybody who is sitting in a similar situation as Nicoletta of, hey, I've been told multiple times in my life, or one time in my life, that I don't know if I'm attracted to you. Or if you have a hunch, like, I'm getting broken up with for that reason, or not chosen for that reason. God always wins in the end. There's an impact of sin that creates so much brokenness in this world, and I'm sorry that you're not being chosen for that reason. I'm sorry that you've been told that, and it's not okay. It is not okay at all. And one day God has a plan to make it right. He will redeem all things on earth or in heaven. It will be redeemed, and that is so much to do with them and not you. It's been said here, but just to, like, reiterate that it's them and not you.
But I love what you said, that it is like what did you say the verse? It was repentance.
Godly sorrow leads to repentance.
Godly sorrow leads to repentance. And I just want to commend the men and the women that are actively walking out in that right now. Like, I have had the gift of dating men in that process. I have the gift of being surrounded by friends who are also in that process. And so I also just want to say, like, this is a huge, huge thing that the enemy is winning in.
Yeah.
This is an area that I really do believe that Satan has his like fingers in, but we know who wins.
Yeah.
We know who is winning. And so for the people that are fighting, I just want to commend you and say like, there is freedom for this, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. He has come to set you free and give you life and life to the full. So keep fighting, keep like confessing, keep showing up to community, because I've never had a porn addiction, but I've always said that I feel like body image is so similar, because you can't get away from food. You can't get away from bodies. You can't get away from this pressure to be beautiful. And so I relate to those who have battled this issue, but I want you to know, like, God is with you, God is for you, and he can set you free. And Josh, is there any final word you want to say to just anyone listening to this?
Yeah, I would just say, so for me, the thing that God did in me, where, because the reality is you give your life to Jesus, you don't become perfect.
Totally.
You become forgiven.
Yeah.
You do not become perfect, because sanctification is a process. And I thought that, once I conquered one thing, then that thing would be gone. But in my life, I had spent so much time like living in sexual morality that I would have, been really discouraged if I thought, okay, well, God's just going to remove everything.
Totally.
And I did experience a miracle in that God removed from my mind every moment of me being in the porn industry.
Wow.
But he didn't remove the brokenness that was attached to it, and the objectification of women in a way. And the prayer that God prompted me to pray was not try harder.
Yeah.
It wasn't be better. It was, God, change my heart. It's like, when Jesus is talking, Sermon on the Mount, saying, hey, adultery, you think adultery is this? I'm saying if you even lust in your heart after a woman, you've committed adultery. And even if, you gouged out your eyes and you cut off your hand and you were brain dead, you would still have a corrupted heart, and you can't try hard enough to fix that. You don't need behavior modification. You need heart transformation. So God changed the way that I see people. Because that's what porn does. Porn changes the way that you see people.
Yeah.
So God changed the way that I see people, and allow me to see people like you see them.
Yeah.
So that I can see God's daughter.
Come on. And y'all have heard me say that, is that I've asked God for eye surgery in my own life. Like, God, my eyes are broken. They are broken when I've looked for men, and they are broken for what I see in the mirror. And I am a testament of like him giving me new eyes to see what he sees. And man, 1 Samuel, man looks at outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And so Joshua, thank you for being on our podcast. We are going to link everything about you in our show notes, but truly from the bottom of my heart, I was so excited about this conversation. I'm so encouraged by what you're doing, passionate about what you're doing. We'll probably talk to you more offline, because I just am so deeply aware of how this affects what I'm doing in my own ministry. And so grateful.
Part of the reason that we do longer podcasts, which you guys have asked for, is that we like to do deep dives into some topics that you'll hear in like 30-minute podcasts aren't going to cover. I just want to address quickly some things that we haven't covered that we want to cover, that we know that some of you guys are having questions about. Some of them is like, okay, what am I doing about my boyfriend or husband's darting eyes? Like, how do I not let that hurt me? How do I not take it as a personal offense when somebody has watched porn and I've been saving myself for marriage, or whatever that looks like. There are like lots of nuanced things. There's stories that I even want to tell where I'm like, when my husband confessed porn to me once in our marriage, it was early on, and I literally asked him to like write a letter of asking that girl forgiveness, because like that's a person and you used her. And she wasn't yours for the taking, even though she was putting her body in that position. Yeah. And so there are like so many things in this conversation, I think, for women and for men specifically, that we can get into, and I want to deep dive into those. So we're going to have to do a part 2. Y'all let us know in the comments if you want part 2, what questions you have. We would love to do that. I want to hear from Hope. She sounds, I'm like, I love her.
She's the best.
Joshua, thank you so much. We'll link your stuff in the show notes. Nicoletta, love you. Holy babes, we love you, and healing is possible. See y'all next time.
Bye, guys.